Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Kiko Tanaka. I'm speaking to you today from a place of calm, picturing a warm, sun-drenched room where we can sit together. And in my family's Japanese heritage, especially with the elders I grew up with, health was never a problem to be solved. It was a rhythm, a lifelong flow, and our job was just to listen. So I want to welcome you to this space where we can look at aging not as a decline, but as a deepening of that rhythm.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm Dr. Elias Sterling. My background is in medicine. I spent decades as a physician, specializing in geriatrics and physiology. My role here is to really bring the clinical why to our conversation. I've seen so many people feel betrayed by their bodies as they age. They think a new symptom is a failure, that they're doing something wrong. My goal is to show you that often what feels like a malfunction is actually your body working incredibly hard to protect you. Aging isn't a failure of biology, it's a shift.
That specific shift in thinking, from failure to protection. I think that's the perfect way to begin today's topic. We're going to explore something that I know frustrates so many of us. It's that 1.00 a.m. to 3.00 a.m. wake-up call. You know the feeling. You fall asleep just fine. Maybe you're exhausted. But then your eyes just snap open. You're not panicked or running through a to-do list. You're just awake, wide awake. And that can become a real source of anxiety.
It is a universal complaint in my field. I can't tell you how many times patients have described that exact window, 1 to 3 a.m. They almost always call it insomnia, or they think they suddenly have anxiety. But today, we're going to reframe that. We're not looking at a sleep disorder. We're looking at a communication from the night shift, specifically from your liver. If you're waking up then, it's very likely your liver is trying to tell you something about your fuel gauge.
The liver. That's fascinating. In my culture, the night was... well, it was sacred time for the organs. It was about quiet labor. My elders understood that after sunset, the body switches from doing to repairing. It's interesting to think of the liver having its own schedule, like a worker clocking in.
That's the perfect analogy. In fact, Barbara O'Neill, one of the sources we looked at, she calls the liver the project manager of the body. And I think that's brilliant. Everything that enters your body, food, toxins, medication, it all has to go through the liver to be sorted. The liver decides, is this fuel? Is this poison? Do I store this or do I flush it?
And this project manager, does it have a specific shift?
It works 24/7, but it's deep cleaning shift. It's peak time for processing metabolic waste. That's precisely between 1:50 and 3:20 a.m. Now here's where the wake-up call happens. The liver is also your battery. It stores glucose in a form called glycogen. Think of it like a backup battery, mainly for your brain.
Wait, let me just pause you there. If I'm sleeping, my muscles aren't moving, I'm not thinking. Why does my body need so much fuel? Shouldn't we be in like a low power mode?
That is a great question. Your conscious mind is offline, but your brain is incredibly active. It's burning almost as much glucose as when you're awake. It's consolidating memories, flushing out waste. It requires a steady stream of fuel, so the liver slowly drips out the stored glycogen to keep your blood sugar stable.
Okay, so it's like a generator running in the background.
Exactly. But, and this is so crucial for older adults, as we age, our liver's capacity to store that glycogen, the size of that battery, it often gets a little smaller. So imagine it's 2:00 a.m., the liver's working hard, and suddenly the fuel gauge hits empty. That's hypoglycemia, low blood sugar.
And the body can't let the brain run out of fuel. That would be an emergency, right?
A metabolic emergency. If the brain runs out of glucose, you can go into a coma. So the body has a fail-safe. It releases a surge of cortisol and adrenaline.
The fight or flight hormones.
Right. Adrenaline literally squeezes the liver to wring out any last drop of sugar it can find. But think about what adrenaline does to you.
It wakes you up fast.
It jolts you. That's why you wake up wide awake. Maybe your heart is beating a little faster. It isn't that you're bad at sleeping. It's your body saving you from a dangerous blood sugar drop. It's a survival mechanism.
That is such a profound shift. If framing your body's signals as communication instead of failure feels like a relief to you, then you are exactly who we have these conversations for. It changes everything from my body is broken to my body is protecting me, but maybe I need to support it differently.
Precisely. And this leads us to some of the popular advice out there. Because you'll see experts like Dr. Berg talking about circadian rhythms. And he's right when he says that cortisol should be at its absolute lowest between midnight and 2:00 a.m.
Right, that's our deepest rest. So if it's high, does that mean our whole clock is broken?
Well, the common interpretation is that your rhythm is inverted. But we have to apply what I call the senior audit to this. For a younger person with a huge glycogen battery, they might sleep right through a little dip. But for a senior, that battery is smaller, more sensitive. Your body triggers that alarm faster. It's a hardware issue, not a software one.
I see. So the advice to just lower your stress might miss the point if the stress is purely chemical.
Exactly. You cannot meditate your way out of low blood sugar. You have to address the fuel. And this brings us to an even more critical point, which Barbara O'Neill talks about. Phase 1 and Phase 2 detoxification. This gets a little technical, but it's vital for safety as we get older.
Please, let's unpack it. I think the word detox gets thrown around so much it's almost lost its meaning.
It has. So biologically, most toxins are fat soluble. They get stored in our fat cells. You can't just pee them out. The liver's job is to make them water soluble. Phase I is the breakdown. The liver uses enzymes to chop up the toxins. But here's the catch. The pieces, these metabolites, can actually be more toxic than the original poison.
That sounds backward. Why would the body make something more toxic?
Think of it like a demolition project. To build a new kitchen, you first have to rip out the old walls and maybe some asbestos. The dust in the air during demolition is more dangerous than the intact wall was.
That's a perfect image. Phase 1 creates toxic dust.
Exactly. And Phase 2 is the cleanup crew. It's called conjugation. The liver has to take that toxic dust and wrap it up. It binds it to amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. Once they're wrapped in protein, they're safe and water-soluble. Out they go.
And this is where the danger lies for seniors, isn't it? I see so many people trying aggressive fasting, water-only cleanses.
This is the critical warning. If you do an aggressive fast, you start burning fat rapidly, releasing all those stored toxins. That's Phase I on overdrive. But if you're not eating, you have no protein, no amino acids for Phase 2. You don't have a cleanup crew.
So you have all this toxic dust just circulating around.
Correct. You have open bags of asbestos lying around your system, and that feels awful. It feels like brain fog, nausea, and yes, it wakes you up at 2 a.m. Barbara O'Neill tells a story about a Vietnam veteran with chemical exposure stored in his fat. His doctor told him, don't lose weight too fast. He knew that a rapid release of those toxins would overwhelm the man's Phase 2 capacity.
That's so powerful. It reminds me of how we treat fragile heirlooms in my family. You don't scrub them, you study them, you support them. In my tradition, we never did these aggressive, starving detoxes. We used broths, gentle, mineral-rich broths, to support the cleaning, not strip the house.
That's the gold standard. You need the mops and sponges, the amino acids and antioxidants to clean up the mess.
Okay, so we have the fuel issue and the detox issue, but there's another piece to this 2.0 AM window. Something to do with our eyes?
Yes, the light connection. We can't ignore the environment. The master clock in your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it's right behind your eyes. And it's incredibly sensitive to blue light from screens.
Right.
If you're looking at a screen at 10 p.m., you're basically telling your brain it's noon.
And what does that do hormonally?
It suppresses melatonin, your sleep hormone, but it also keeps cortisol, your stress hormone, higher than it should be. So now you've got a double whammy. Artificial light keeping your cortisol high, and then at 2 a.m., a blood sugar drop spikes it even higher. It's no wonder you're waking up. You know, if you appreciate these calm, physiology-first explanations that really prioritize safety over trends, subscribing is a simple way to stay connected to this community.
So let's talk about the way of living with this. We understand the mechanism now. It's a fuel and timing issue. In Japan, one thing my grandmother was so strict about was finishing our evening meal early. The kitchen closed.
And biologically, that's smart. You want digestion to be finished before the liver's night shift starts.
Yeah.
You don't want the project manager processing new imports when it should be cleaning the site.
But wait, we just said the problem is running out of fuel. If I eat early, won't I run out of fuel even faster?
Well, that's the nuance. That's the senior audit. The bulk of digestion should be done early, yes. However, because of that small battery issue, some people do really well with a very small, specific buffer right before bed.
A buffer? What do you mean?
Not a meal. Not a bowl of ice cream, but a small amount of fat or protein, maybe a few macadamia nuts. Fat burns slowly. It can provide a slow drip fuel that bridges the gap, keeps the battery from hitting red so the adrenaline doesn't fire.
I like that. Gentle support, not a heavy load. And what about warmth? We believe the liver functions poorly when it's cold.
That aligns perfectly. Your liver is a chemical plant. Reactions work best at optimal temperatures. All these cold shock therapies are trendy, but for a senior's liver, keeping the core warm is much more supportive. A hot water bottle on your abdomen in the evening is actually wonderful therapy. It opens the blood vessels and helps the liver do its job.
And what about specific nutrients? What should we be adding?
3 big ones come to mind from the sources. First, magnesium. Dr. Berg calls it a physiological tranquilizer. It dampens that adrenaline response.
Yeah.
Vitamin B1 is also crucial for energy metabolism in the liver. And of course, protein. You need those amino acids for the phase 2 cleanup crew.
It doesn't have to be a big steak, right?
No, absolutely not. Gentle, plant-based proteins can be excellent. Legumes, pea protein, anything that supplies those building blocks. And finally, fiber. Once the liver dumps the toxins into the gut, fiber is what binds to them and carries them out. Without it, they just get reabsorbed.
I have a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds. When we talk about the liver struggling, people hear fatty liver, and that sounds terrifying. Permanent.
That's the fear, isn't it? But here's the beautiful truth. The liver is the only organ that can fully regenerate. It is so resilient, it wants to heal. If you reduce the refined sugars and corn syrup, and you support it with protein and fiber and warmth, it can reverse that fast storage. It is not a permanent sentence, it's a signal.
That is so reassuring. It's about a gentle turn, not a sharp swerve. We don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Maybe it's just dimming the lights an hour earlier. Maybe it's looking at that 2 a.m. wake up, not with anger, but with compassion. Thank you, body. You needed fuel. I hear you. We're going to keep walking through these patterns together, so please turn on your notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. As we close today, I want to leave you with a thought. Waking up at 2 a.m. isn't a malfunction. It's your body asking for balance. Perhaps a bit more protein, a bit less evening light, or a bit more warmth. It's a conversation.
And I'll just add, when you understand the timing and the chemistry, the fear really does disappear.
Yeah.
You realize you are not broken. You're just shifting rhythms.
Thank you for spending this time in the deep dive with us.
It has been a pleasure.
Stay vibrant.
Stay vibrant.